And my view is, at this level, scholars are expected to mature their intellectual, ideological, and political positions in their scholarship. Because the LLB is fast, and you just told about the rules and cases and whatnot. There's no time to anchor study of law in theoretical frameworks. I know there's a bit of jurisprudence taught, but it's hardly, it's not enough. So when you come to the LLM, I think we should expect in the 3 areas that they are going to undertake it, that their intellectual, ideological, and political positions will mature. And that was my experience in Dar es Salaam when I did a master's, because you focus on a particular issue and you start reading stuff you couldn't read when you're doing your bachelor's, because it's a lot of courses, and but here somebody is going to come up with a topic on governance or trade and investment, and they have the time now to basically read and do their research. And I think that's why with the LLM, I haven't seen the curriculum, but I'm sure it talks a lot about, the subjects. It takes a lot about literature review. I guess it's at that stage where law is analyzed and criticized and suggestions for reform made. Now, but in Kenya, we are very lucky that we have a transformative constitution, which actually has a theory of its interpretation, and is very clear that what we call staunch positivism, if you've done some jurisprudence, is associated with Professor Hart, and he basically, the mantra for him, or the dictum for him, was the law is a law is a law. Okay, so you study the rules, you don't critique them, you can vary them, you study case law, and that's it. You examine on whether you can actually answer the questions of what is a contract. You say it's offer acceptance and there is consideration, but contract law is more than those legal rules, because it doesn't exist, in a vacuum. And our constitution, and there's jurisprudence that is very, very, very clear when you read the various articles, 259, 159, preamble, article 22, and article 10 is also very, very important. And you read the Supreme Court Act, article section 3. It says very clearly that our constitution demands that when we are teaching, when we are doing research, we realize that the analysis of law has to be done in the historical, social, cultural, economic, technological, theological, spiritual, and political context. So what Hart called the non-legal phenomena, or Kelson talks about also the pure theory of law, but the Constitution, our Constitution says the Constitution doesn't exist in a vacuum. So you go back to history, back to economics, you go back to technology, and now we have artificial intelligence. You go back, to culture, languages and so forth. Because within that constitution, there is an agenda for social transformation. Okay? Take, for example, if one of you will be researching on the presidency, for example, the articles that deal with the president very clearly say that we don't want the imperial presidency, okay, which we had for a long time, from 1963 to 2010, where the president is, by imperial you mean, we mean that the president is the President of the United States, the Queen of England, the Pope, all rolled in one. Very powerful office that was not accountable. And so the Constitution says, let's democratize and decentralize this power. So you create the county governments. You have institutions that actually also take that bit of power, and a lot of it, whether it's the judiciary, whether it's the office of the Attorney General, office of the DPP. Although the occupiers of those offices, I don't think that they have internalized Articles 156 and 157, because they are told they shouldn't listen to anybody. They don't need the president's advice to do what they're supposed to do. But that's the issue about implementation. It's very, 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 very difficult. We know that you need a leadership that is committed to breathing life into the Constitution. But as Professor Kibwana says, on 27th of August 2010, this country gave birth to a beautiful baby called the Constitution. And then we handed the baby for upkeep to child traffickers. How do you expect the baby to grow? And that's the contradictions we have. People who find the Constitution inconvenient, we expect them to implement it. And that's where the whole quest for alternative political leadership is based. Because you need to get people who are going to look at these sites of struggle, whether it's land, whether it's environment, whether it's investment law, and deal with it. You can imagine if Chapter 12 of the Constitution, which deals with finance, if Okoito Mutata was president, the cases he files in court about odious deaths, he says we shouldn't pay because the Constitution was not complied upon. And those who took that money on our behalf should return it. Okay, even if they are banked it in New York or wherever. So the leadership becomes important in terms of implementation. And so going back to to the LLM, the beautiful thing is the Constitution has allowed you also, has given you an idea of research and broad objective that whatever you research on is important in developing the jurisprudence that it's in in the Constitution, and that's a a great opportunity to basically teach, research, and even practice the Constitution, within those factors, I've mentioned. And it's important, of course, to know that transformative constitutions are a phenomenon of the global South. You start with India, South Africa, in South America, Colombia, Ecuador, Venezuela, Argentina, and Brazil. So this notion that you can have a transformative constitution is based on the theory that law can be used as an instrument of change. And we have seen a bit of that in our constitution. When you look at the robust public interest litigation that is happening, when citizens, even individual citizens, they go to court and say, this is, unconstitutional. When you find the Gen Z uprising, interpreting Article 1 of the Constitution about sovereign power, because that's what they were saying. They were saying sovereign power is delegated to institutions and it can be withdrawn. And the people can exercise it, directly. And even under Article 3, if they had overthrown the government, it wouldn't have been a coup in my view, because they overthrow the government. That article says any change of a regime other than, one that invokes the Constitution is illegal. But if you are invoking the Constitution and you come into power, you can't. That's why they were never charged with treason. It wasn't possible to charge them with treason because they were drafting or political demands anchored on the Constitution. And that's very powerful from what I've seen in terms of, our Constitution. Some people don't see the gains we have made. They normally talk about what we've lost, but in struggle, every victory counts. That's why the women in this country haven't given up on that the truth as gender role, right? They're still fighting because that's what the Constitution, gives them. So the research for the 30 students, I'm told, who will start, it's for them to pick the courses they like, but bear in mind that their research is required in the judiciary, is required in the legal firms, in the civil society, and that is a great component of judicial social transformation. It's also, I think, our students who are going to do this course have a great opportunity as scholars in the global South, to market what I call reverse learning in constitutional law. Because I think the global North thinks that they have nothing to learn from the global South. And, I wait to see a day where our professors are invited to go and write a new constitution for the US and write one for the UK, which doesn't have one. Because what is happening in the global south on transformative constitution is very, very powerful way of, social transformation. And even in international law, because that has been mentioned, I guess we all know about the great example in international law, which is called TRAIL, third world approaches in international law. And it was started by some of our professors. Professor Justice Joy Ngugi was part of it. Professor Makau Mutua, who has a great opportunity to be advised by President Ruto. The Professor James Gathi, and there is also other African professors, Professor Okafa. This is some literature that whoever is doing trade, investments should read, because it's very rich in critiquing international law. Although in our constitution, we've adopted it, but we have adopted it with the condition that it's aligned, to our constitution. So there is a lot of that will arm our scholars with knowledge to basically fight for social transformation, in this country. I also hope that the first cohort will be encouraged to research on what I call the sides of struggle for social transformation in our constitution. And there are many. Sovereign power, there is a lot being done now on the agency uprising and its strength and limitations. Gender equity and equality is still with us. Land, culture, language, technology, particularly the double-edged artificial intelligence, spiritualities, finance. So you can pick, it will be great if somebody, there is an open area which is not research at all, because we are talking about governance. If we can get some people interested in African justice systems, because the judiciary is very keen on it, but needs scholars who look at African justice systems, which as you know, only 10% or less than 10% goes to our formal courts. I don't even know why we call them formal, because the majority go to the pastors and they go to elders. The Merus, I think they have their council in Jurinjeke. There is a lot that is happening in the judiciary about African traditional religions. Now they have integrated the two approaches, and so even Jurinjeke decides on a case, and thankfully they have agreed now that that they must have elders who are young, who are women. Because the last time I talked to them, they said, talking to 3 elders, they said, oh, we represent the dead and the living, and the yet to be born, and women and the young people cannot be members. So we told them, okay, you continue with your mandate, which is unconstitutional, and when you are ready, you should come back. And I hear you know, they've come back. So these elders, when they decide, their judgments are being filed in subordinate courts. And I think that gives them some judicial coercive power, all right? Which is very dear to, you know, very dear to them. And let's not forget the British justice that we inherited is very adversarial. Okay, it doesn't seek restorative justice at all. You know, once you go to court, whoever loses, even if it's a brother or sister, there is enmity. You know, but you go to the elders, they will always, you know, they will always make sure that their decision restores, you know, the values of the community, so that if your brothers and sister, you know, you don't really hate each other, and I think that's you know, that's important. So that's one area I think that you know, is worth looking at. So I thank Kenya University Law School. Sorry, it's Kenyatta. I don't know why I called it Kenya. Kenyatta University Law School for getting actually involved in what I see as a very serious struggle of having scholars who are going to breathe life in the development of jurisprudence in you know, in this country, and also help us, you know, to give us ideas in the struggle for liberation in all areas of our endeavor. And I thank you very much. What am I supposed to do to launch? Yeah. So I can happily launch. You'll be placed on this great initiative is launched. You know, and